Narcissists and cluster Bs generally can be quite impulsive. It's kind of like they think they know what they want. They're in this state of mind that they think is just who they are, and they make big decisions in that state of mind, in that emotional state. But sometimes they make decisions that they really regret. Maybe they were under the influence of being slightly paranoid. Maybe they were under the influence of being a bit cocky. Maybe they were under the influence of some emotional that kind of temporarily takes over. Maybe anger, maybe euphoria, thinking about a different person. It goes on and on. Normal people who don't have these dramatic ways of thinking and these wild mood swings tend to make big decisions in a more level-headed state. But with cluster Bs, narcissists, and other cluster Bs, they tend to make decisions where they think they're level-headed, but they actually are not. And what this means is they're pretty poor judges of what they want for the future. Because if they're dumping their current boyfriend or girlfriend, thinking, this is over, they've been with a person for some time, they think they want a life without that person, they can feel quite resolute about that. And the same thing can go for maybe quitting jobs or sharing somebody's secret, being an extreme gossip. They may make many decisions and they can justify it as the right thing in their mind at that point in time. But very soon afterwards, they realize, shit, they made a mistake. So being poor judges of what they want, of the future, how their decisions impact them. Of course, everybody, even healthy people, can make poor decisions at times. But those who are on the cluster B spectrum, because their emotions tend to be a bit more volatile and they tend to act upon emotions more so than most people, they tend to make those mistakes more often and worse. So, and that's one of the worst things. If you want something and you don't get it, that can hurt. But okay, fine. You don't get everything you want. Sometimes some things you have to really work hard for, and things don't always work out the way you expect them to. But when you make a decision and you release something that you currently have, thinking you don't want that thing anymore. Maybe you had a really good job, lots of prospects, well paying, or maybe you had someone in your life who was very valuable, had a lot to add, and they were really respectful towards you, and they considered you in high regard, and you release that thing. That's one of the worst things that happens in terms of regret, is when people have something that they don't think they want. They release it, and then they realize that actually they really did want that thing, or maybe even worse, maybe they needed that thing. Maybe that thing was a godsend. Maybe that thing was the perfect element to help them get to where they wanted to get to. And that kills a person worse than anything emotionally, is the regret of having had something where you voluntarily let it go, and then you realize that actually the world without that thing isn't so much better. Like if you have an employer, a team that was really supportive at your company, and you had all the opportunities to kind of build your career the way you wanted, but then you decided to leave that off to greener pastures, and then you regret it. The doors are not always open to come back. Sometimes if the doors are open, that's great. But when the doors are not, and you realize, shit, it's hard to find that dream job again, that's a really dark place to be in, because all of a sudden you're unhappy. Your job, your career is a big part of your life. For many people, it's your biggest part. You work 8 hours a day. You're thinking about work many other hours, planning your career. And if you lose something big like that, the regret factor can be quite gigantic. And when it comes to people in your life, your partner, good friends, fiancés, whatever, people who supported you, cared for you, and were actually healthy for you, and you decided to go off to greener pastures thinking you can do better, and then you quickly realize that, oh shit, the grass isn't greener on the other side. You know, the whole grass is greener syndrome. Narcissists suffer from the grass is greener syndrome much more than your average person. Cluster Bs suffer from the grass is greener syndrome much more than your average person. Of course, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody makes decisions that they realize that actually that wasn't such a good idea. But when you make that decision and you think you know what you want, or you think you know what you don't want, and you're off to something new, and then you realize actually that thing that you didn't think you wanted, you actually realize now that you do want. The deepest regret that you will ever have in your life will come exactly from that situation. And the problem with cluster Bs is they live in regret. Not all of them, but many of them. Narcissists in particular. But if you think borderlines, or probably borderlines and narcissists are very similar in that sense. You know, they either make a decision being too cocky, too euphoric, thinking about the grass is greener aspect of something, maybe another person, maybe another job. They're really euphoric about that, so they don't think from a common sense perspective. They basically just shoot themselves in the foot. And then when they realize they made that mistake and they can't get that thing back, you know, they're in this mess. They're in this mess, and regret is a bad feeling, and sometimes they can fix it, but sometimes they can't. And that's where, you know, if you've realized that you've been dealing with a narcissist and they suffered from the grass is greener syndrome, they were off to somebody new, and then they realize, oh shit, that somebody new isn't all that. Their life now isn't all that great, and they want to make a way back to you so they can use you to make them feel better. Look, they're creating a mess. You know, they destroy their own lives. They destroy good things, and they try to create fabricated stories in their head why they're doing okay when actually their world kind of caves in around them. It's not your job to share in their devastation. It's not your job to be devastated, to fix what they've done. Look, if they create a filthy mess, if they create a messy bed, you have to let them sleep in it. You have to let them sort it out. And maybe they are, you know, injured for the long term. But it's not your job to fix them when they crash, when they realize they made a bad mistake. And narcissists, they love trying to make their problems other people's problems. And obviously, if they left you and then they want to come back, obviously they want to loop you back in and get you back into their orbit. But of course, you have to keep your distance, because you're not going to allow yourself to be part of their destruction. You know, they've created this, and you have to keep doing what you're doing, which shouldn't involve them. Anyway, thanks for watching that. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.